It's the week beginning the 1st of July, and this is Business Unwrapped, brought to you by Barclays Corporate Banking. In this new series, we'll speak with industry experts about a big business story from the week that will shape how we live our lives in the years to come. I'm Olly Mann. Let's unwrap the business week. And joining me today from the week's digital team, we have Rebecca Gillie. And alongside her, as there will be every episode of this special bonus series, is a special guest. This time it is Nate Lanxon. Hello, Nate.
Hello, Olly. It's my pleasure to be here. You didn't ask, but I knew you would, so there's the answer.
Now, I know you from your excellent tech podcast, Tech's Message.
Thank you.
But you have a corporate day job too, making you therefore the ideal guest for this spin-off series. Tell us about that.
Yes, I am a reporter and editor at Bloomberg News. So I do a lot of stuff on our technology team.
Oh, good. You brought us a tech story.
I brought you a tech story.
What have you got for us this week? What do you think this business week will be remembered for?
Well, this was a week that a behemoth avoided being driven out of town.
Uber insisted that since last year there had been wholesale change in the way it now conducts its business. It was now transparent and open. But Uber's UK boss, Tom Elvidge, declined to be open with the media afterwards, instead issuing just a brief written statement. We are pleased with today's decision. We will continue to work with TfL to address their concerns and earn their trust, while providing the best possible service for our customers.
That was a report by Paul Brennan for Al Jazeera. So, Nate, it's the Uber story. They say they've changed. What exactly have they changed?
They've actually changed quite a lot. So back in September, TfL said that the company wasn't fit and proper to hold a license. And a lot of people wondered what fit and proper meant. But they took issue with a lot of things. They used software around the world to try and evade sting operations by regulators. They had suffered scandals related to male dominant culture. They had issues with how Uber conducts medical background checks and criminal background checks, a lot of things that, when safety is your top concern, it didn't come across that Uber was necessarily being the best behaved. So this week, Uber was in court to appeal to get its license back because TfL said you can't have a license. We're not going to renew your license because you're not fit and proper.
And they didn't really argue it robustly, did they? They really did a sort of prostate mea culpa and said, look, we made mistakes, but we're changing. That was their technique.
Over several months, yeah. So, one of the best things that Uber probably did was allow its CEO, Travis Kalanick, to resign, which he did last year. And then a new gentleman called Dara Khosrowshahi, who was previously the CEO of Expedia, joined the company, put his hands up, we've made mistakes. Although, to be fair, he joined only about 3 weeks before the TfL decision happened. But he joined and said, we're going to take this in a new direction. We're going to be better behaved. We've gone through the awkward sort of growth years. We now need to be better behaved. Then the TfL license hit. So he flew to London and started on a kind of a campaign to undo what a lot of people had seen as like years of very poor behavior.
And as you say, you cover this kind of beat for Bloomberg. What is the significance of this story beyond the fact that obviously Uber are a massive company that turn over a lot of money? Is there a sign here that the gig economy, as it's called, is maturing?
Yes. I mean, it's basically going through that kind of awkward adolescent stage where it doesn't really know exactly what it is and doesn't really give a very clear answer to someone that says, what are you doing? It's at this point where people don't really know if somebody is an employee. Are they a worker? Are they entitled to sick pay and benefits? Should they be insured? Should they have paternity and maternity leave? Should they have, holiday time and things like that? And depending on the company you ask, they'll all give you a slightly different answer or say, well, we do this and this, but we don't give them this. One of the things Uber did in that period between having the license revoked and this week is it started to offer its drivers insurance for sickness, to cover loss of earnings if they were unwell, which is a big decision for a gig economy player to do because that is a direct cost associated with every driver. The drivers aren't paying, Uber's paying.
And Rebecca, that's happened because Uber were put under this very direct pressure in a huge market for them, London, that they might be kicked out of town if they didn't comply or make changes. Do you see them as an outlier, or do you think that other transnational tech giants, other disruptors as they're called in Silicon Valley, are going to start to change as well?
I think the expectations of what individual governments are going to put up with are going to change. What's really going to change the major players is how governments respond to them. They, at the end of the day, the ones who have the power over where this goes. These companies aren't going to volunteer to offer extra benefits because the way they've managed to skyrocket to this enormous success is by operating in a very lean way and not offering those benefits. But I think what we have seen in this case is that it's actually, I think, a pretty optimistic sign that there can be a kind of middle way where governments, regulators, authorities, even unions can come together with these companies and find a way that does offer flexibility to workers and companies, but also, the baseline rights that we've worked for generations to achieve.
And there's a couple of issues that sort of are sitting behind those statements, which, one is that by avoiding this going to a second appeal, this could have gone all the way up to the High Court, to the Supreme Court. They have avoided a sort of a precedent being set that if Uber is badly behaved and a city revokes its license, it doesn't get its license back. That would have sent a message to a lot of smaller markets for Uber, a lot of potentially less influential, less powerful markets around Europe and elsewhere in the world that says, you can stand up to Uber and you can kick them out. So they've avoided that. On the other side of it, and I think this has kind of been unreported pretty widely, that the drivers, contrary to popular belief, are not actually unhappy working for Uber. Like the reason they work for Uber, and I spent about £500 of Bloomberg's money, I should point out, taking Ubers around the city around May and earlier this month to just talk to them and ask them what they thought of all this. And all of them, almost without exception, said that there's no alternative to Uber. It's flexible. They came from self-employed backgrounds where they didn't have benefits anyway, but now they don't have those benefits, but they do have the flexibility to work when they want and make a decent living.
And we see that story coming up a lot, don't we, Rebecca? Particularly in regard to 0 hours contracts as well. It's another argument that comes up, isn't it? Especially around election time, is yes, you can find people for whom they feel trapped and it's the only way that they can make money and there should be, arguably, more protections. On the other hand, a lot of people in those arrangements choose to do them because it's flexible and you don't want to punish them for being able to do that.
For a lot of people working in Uber, there are people there who have a regular day job and do it for extra money. But for people who rely on it for their income, the question is, what is the alternative? What kind of jobs would they be working in if they weren't driving for Uber? And for a lot of them, the answer probably would be 0 hours contracts, not knowing how much work you're going to get with no control really over your shifts.
And a lot of them came from minicab backgrounds, so they were, predominantly couriers, minicab drivers. No one was really a black cab driver going into Uber. But minicabs now, like the opportunity for them to go back had Uber have gone away, is actually very, very small. Every single year, without exception, since Uber came to London, the number of minicab companies in London have gone down. There's now about 25% fewer now than there was in about 2012. So, the opportunity to just go back and suddenly start working for them again, it would take some time, and it would be a period of time that they'd probably struggle to make money.
Now, Nate, you've been covering Silicon Valley for over a decade now. And so if you were to boil it down, the terminology coming out of there for the last decade was disrupt. Disrupt, disrupt, disrupt. Take away these old models, these traditional companies, and come in with something new that doesn't need regulation, that changes the industry. Has that been slightly tarnished now?
The word disrupt has more stigma attached to it than the actual act of disruption, I would say. It's kind of like when people say synergy in a boardroom, they always feel very guilty because they know that someone somewhere is thinking, oh, he didn't say that. And I would say similar is true of disruption. But no, at the end of the day, there's always something to disrupt, and companies are thinking of new ways to do it. So no, I don't think it's been tarnished.
But do you think, Rebecca, if you were starting a company now, if you're a startup, you probably wouldn't go around raising money saying we're going to disrupt?
Yeah, there's definitely a pushback. But I think the thing is with startups is that the driving forces behind these startups are often relatively privileged, usually white, usually male, ambitious thrusters, if you pardon the word. And there's a certain attitude that comes with that.
Swagger.
Yes, a certain swagger, a certain I can make it, I have this self-confidence, I'm going to disrupt, I'm going to change. And it doesn't really go hand in hand with a lot of empathy for the average person or the average person working for them as well. This idea that, well, if you're not happy doing this, then leave, do something else, start your own thing. I think there is a certain attitude that comes with the startup that isn't always very compatible with, a considered empathetic view of the rights of the people who are working at the bottom of those organisations.
And it's interesting, isn't it, Nate, that part of Uber's PR drive in this country recently has been this series they've made with Channel 4, which is all about humanising it, isn't it? It's about the drivers are all characters and look where they come from and look what they say, and that it's about the people that work for them being part of the company rather than pushing themselves as a brand.
Yeah, that series, it's kind of textbook marketing spin posing as editorial in a sense. I mean, it was great for what it was, but I don't think they'll necessarily be doing that again.
Why?
Because I think it existed purely to further a specific message that Uber values its drivers. And I think that it does, but it can take a longer, more considered approach to that and actually change on a behavioral level where word of mouth spreads that message. At that time, they really needed to inject on national television, look, our drivers are great and they're happy and they'll get out of the car and take a selfie with you and it's fantastic. Now they need to do something much, much bigger, and I don't think just doing a TV show that 5-minute episodes is going to be enough.
But it is, again, a shift in PR terms for tech, isn't it? Away from this product's going to change your life or make your life better, and into, hey, we're people too.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it is, and they've had to show that. But people are very cynical, very critical. We've got a lot of backlash against Uber and companies like Uber, and a lot of time it's from people who don't necessarily understand what Uber does and the reasons why people drive for Uber. I mean, I'm no Uber apologist. I do use Ubers, but I don't like everything the company does.
Just tell our listeners how you travelled to the Week studios today.
It wasn't a protest to Uber, but I did arrive on an electric scooter. It's
in the corner of the studio. It's fabulous.
It's my third.
I mean, I would die if I got on it, but it looks amazing. What is it?
It's a city bug. I'm not here
How much does it cost?
£700.
Wow!
But bear this in mind.
Like a lump of plastic.
It will go 12 miles on a single charge. It charges in 3 hours. It can go about 20 kilometers an hour, and it means I don't have to take taxis or the tube around the city.
Is there an age at which you will feel inappropriately old to be scooting?
Well, I'm 33 now. I would say it's about 33.
Yeah.
But as I pointed out to my brother, who managed to kindly highlight that I looked like a bit of an idiot going through bank at 7 a.m. each day, I said, it doesn't matter. I'm married now. So my need to look cool. I mean, I'm sitting here in a pair of shorts, but talking about business. No one knows that.
That is it. That is our business briefing for this week. My thanks to Nate Lanxon and Rebecca Gillie, and also to our sponsor, Barclays Corporate Banking. We will be back in a fortnight with another of these bonus editions. Do make sure you hear the main show as well, though, The Week Unwrapped, where we cover 3 stories that have flown under the radar each week. You can subscribe to that on your podcatcher of choice, or find us at theweekunwrapped.com. I've been Olly Mann. The music is by Tom Morby, the producer Matt Hill at Rethink Audio. Until next time, bye-bye.